Hey VC, it is War God 63 here. Kevin, see, I have a new series that I am going to be doing called Blast from the Past, showcasing bands from the late 60s into the 70s to start off, and some of these albums were very influential on myself, could be influential on yourself if you know of these bands. Some of them you'll know, some of them you may not, but this is a kind of a dedication to an old friend of mine that used to be a DJ on our radio station, Sonic Asylum Radio.com. He went by Mad Brad, and he passed away about 3 years ago. Brad Toth was his name. He's the one who gave me a start on the radio, gave me a chance, and I'm still doing it, but not as often, mostly in the winter months. So this is kind of through him that I'm doing this series, new video line here. So I've started off, I think, with 8 albums. I was only going to do 6, but I picked 8 or 9 right off the bat that were very influential to me in the early days. And I got a lot of stuff from the 60s and the 70s that I'm going to start in with. But first off, we're going to start in with this band. This is my first intro into this band. And I know some of you guys know who this is. To me, this is their heaviest album. The self-titled album from Trooper. Just a fantastic release. I remember when I first heard this back in the 70s. This came out in 1975. This first came out. What really caught me was a track on the radio I heard on a college radio station in Duluth, Minnesota, that was called General Hand Grenade. Okay, the main members of Trooper are Raw McGuire, Brian Smith, Harry Kalensky, Tommy Stewart, and Randy Bachman actually produced this album. And he plays lead guitar, right side, Randy Bachman on a couple of these tracks, mixed in Canada. My favorite Trooper. There's another one that is very underrated. I may show in another update, but this is a fantastic release. In Trouble Again, really good. Starts off killer guitar, General Hand Grenade, All of the Time, Eddie Takes It Easy, Roller Rink, fantastic song, Baby Won't You Please Come Home, Love of My Life, Don't Stop Now. To me, this is their pinnacle album for this band to start. They did other albums. A lot of the other ones I think are a little bit mellower, but they're still retain that Trooper style. Definitely good hard rock. Flying Colors from Trooper is another one of my favorites. Very underrated album, but two for the show. Good album. They definitely had a, I'm trying to think of the hit on the radio. It still plays today. I just can't think of it. But anyway, a blast from the past. I have most of the Trooper stuff. So, some of it is different. I know Ray McGuire is no longer with us anymore. He passed away a number of years ago. So, unfortunately, that we don't have him again. And but anyway, the first one is the self-titled album Trooper. Another blast from the past. I have two of these albums, and what is playing is music from this band, but not these two albums. I'm going to show you the first one that really that I was introduced to, and this is a classic darker album, darker hard rock album that should be in everybody's collection. I'm talking about Trapeze and the album Medusa. This has Glenn Hughes on it. It's on the Threshold label. Black Cloud, fantastic song. Just a great album. A lot of people think that this is their first album. It is not. And for years I thought the same thing, that it was their first album. It is not. Of course, this has Dave Holland, who went on to play with Judas Priest, Mel Galley, and Glenn Hughes. They were the three-piece of Trapeze. This came out in 1969, and it still gets played quite a bit by myself. It still has the original insert that I kept. But this is definitely one of the first early albums when I was younger that I got turned on to. I was trying to find another album that I had, and I know I have it in my collection. I think I just misplaced it, and I wanted to show it, but I could not find it. So anyway, Trapeze Medusa. Like I say, I have all of the Trapeze stuff either on vinyl or CD, and some good stuff there. Of course, later Glenn Hughes left to go on to Deep Purple, but I came across this album, and this is their first album. They were a 5-piece here. This is Trapeze, as you can see. They're a 5-piece album here, band I should say. Definitely a little bit different than Medusa, but I've never seen another one in the wild ever. I got lucky when I found this. This is a double album too. Again, it has Glenn Hughes, Mel Galley, Dave Holland, Terry Rowley, and John Jones. And this filled with some great stuff. I believe this was released in, could have been 69 as well, or 68. It's on the Threshold label, so, but their first album, Trapeze. Hard to come by. And it's not bad shape. It's got a little wear, but you know, what do you expect for albums coming out of the late 60s? I mean, we're talking well over 50 years. I dislike these Blake sleeves. I got a better sleeve I use. So anyway, Trapeze. Now what's playing is Trapeze as well, and this comes off of Trapeze that was released in '75. This features Dave Holland, Pete Wright, Mel Galley, Rob Kendrick. So this is what's playing in the background. All right, moving on. This. I remember, well, let me get, before I gotta get something to drink here. I'm getting old. I hurt myself with my shoulders. I hurt back, and my leg hurts. I'm gonna go get checked. I'm not feeling, I mean, I feel good mentally, but the joints are really starting to take the toll on me. I mean, the pain is really starting to bother me a lot, so I relax when I can. Anyway, I was in Duluth, Minnesota, and I was in the service at the time back in from 77 to 81 I was in the service, but I was in Duluth from 78 to 81. And every 2 weeks I would go down to the record stores, walk downtown, and go through, there were 4 record stores downtown. 2 were more indie stores, 3 were actually more indie stores, and then 1 was kind of a chain. Musicland was a chain, and then there was one up over the hill in Duluth, in Hermantown. So anyway, I was searching through the albums, like you usually do every 2 weeks. It didn't matter how long it took. If I had a day off, I'd spend well over half a day looking through albums, just picking up stuff that was either killer covers or something I heard on the radio that I liked. This is one album that I was going through, digging through, and I came across this, and it kind of intrigued me. And so I picked it up and got home, played it, and I was blown away. This was some fantastic stuff to me, and of course, once I show it, you all know who it is. They later became Y&T, and I'm talking about Yesterday and Today, their first release, and of course, Dave Meniketti, Joey Alves, Phil Kenmore, who we lost a number of years back, Leonard Hayes. I love the first 2 Yesterday and Today's albums the best, even over any of the Y&T albums, and some of the Y&T albums are great. I just like the rawness of these first 2 albums, whereas in the 80s they became more of a commercial success. These albums were not a commercial success by any means. They were just raw sounding, just great musicians playing great music. And I mean, some of these, like Animal Woman, great track, 25 Hours a Day, Earthshaker, another one of my favorites, Fast Ladies, Very Slow Gin, Alcohol, Beautiful Dreamer. This is a very solid album. And again, like I say, the first 2 Yesterday and Today's are what I like best about the band. They were not polished. They were not commercially successful like they were in the 80s. You know, get on label. They got on MTV, did videos and so forth. I prefer this era of Yesterday and Today. Up next, this album. Of course, we're all familiar with Montrose, the debut, or Montrose with Bad Motor Scooter and so forth. That album is a classic in all sense of the word. It is in my top 10 all time of my favorite albums. Then of course Warner Brothers Presents was another great album, and then the one after that was good. But this one, to me, never got any love. And I think this is a really good release. I absolutely love this. Different vocalist. Ronnie Montrose sounds great. And this one here is Montrose, Jump on It. A very underrated album in their catalog. I mean, some classic tracks are What Are You Waiting For? Jump on It, Rich Man, classic, great track. And I just don't understand why this never really got any bigger. But I mean, you hardly ever see anybody ever show this. I just think it's my second favorite Montrose album. And of course, this has Ronnie Montrose, Bob James, Denny Carmassi, and Jim Alcivar. On that Montrose, of course, we had Sammy Hagar. I'm trying to think of Bill Church, I believe. Of course, Ronnie Montrose, and I can't think of the other guy, but Bob James on vocals, fantastic. I mean, his vocal range, Definitely it isn't a Sammy Hagar style vocals, but this is softer. It's a softer vocals, but it fits this record to a T. I mean, Jump On It is a classic album that really never gets no love. Simple cover, maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's monstrous. Classic album. Should be better known by a lot of people. So another blast from the past. This came out, I believe this is 75 if I'm not mistaken. 76. This Yesterday and Today I showed you came out, let's say it was 78? 76. 76 is when Yesterday and Today came out. But anyway, good stuff. Up next, probably a band that maybe a lot of people don't know. It does have a famous drummer in this, and this is some great hard rock. And this came out I'll have to look, but anyway, the band is called Axis, and it's a Circus World by Axis. Of course, this has Vinny Appice on drums, Danny Johnson, and Jay Davis. I never see anybody ever show this or talk about it, and this is just a great release as well. I believe maybe did two, I think, maybe one, I just can't remember, but it's a little beat up on the top here, but the album is in great shape. You can see a little bit the original. 78 just came out, so another blast from the past, probably not really well known to a lot of people. But I grew up in the 70s, and even myself didn't know about a lot of these bands until later, and this was one of them. But it's a blast from the past, and just some killer hard rock. If you like Vinny Appice, you'll definitely like this. I got two left. This album floored me when I first heard it. I was over at a couple of friends of mine who were in science school. I was in high school, or just going into like 9th grade, 10th grade. These two guys were like freshmen in college where I live. And these guys turned me on to a lot of music, a lot of obscure stuff that really never got on the radio. You could hear a lot of this material on Beaker Street late at night in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s. And but they had just a fantastic collection and a lot of variety there of music. And this was one of them. And I was floored when I first heard this, especially Death Walks Behind You. And I'm talking about Atomic Rooster. Classic album. Vincent Crane, Paul Hammond, John Kahn. I mean, the Hammond organ in here is just so massive on this album. Especially Death Walks Behind You. I mean, it's done by other bands, but I mean, how can you not like this Atomic Rooster album? I mean, it's just classic stuff. And you know, there are other great Atomic Rooster albums, and but this one to me epitomizes the early Atomic Rooster and their sound. Just some great stuff from these guys. Could you call them pioneers of this early sound they were doing? Probably. A little bit of doomish. They had that slow vibe, the keys were kind of what incorporated their sound the best. Vincent Crane's vocals just matched perfectly. Doomy, just great stuff. Atomic Rooster, self-titled album. This came out, I want to say, 72? 71 on Elektra Records. Last one. In my opinion, probably one of the greatest debut albums of a band, and they have one of the greatest logos of a band. And this particular album doesn't really showcase the logo like it has in the other albums, but this album and the track, The Tower, blew me away when I first heard this. I mean, Angel. I mean, we played the hell out of this album so much back in the 70s. I mean, just about every one of my friends that I hung around with had this album either on cassette or in vinyl. Back in my early days, in the 70s, I was more of a 8-track guy. And then I kind of progressed into buying vinyl, but it wasn't until later, mid-70s on, where I really started to buy a lot of vinyl. And this one here, fantastic release. One of my favorite Angel albums of all time. I mean, how can you not? Of course, Gene Simmons found band, kind of put him on a good label. Casablanca, of course, Angel, Barry Brandt, Mickey Jones, Greg Giuffria, Punky Meadows, and Frank Domino. Of course, Punky and Frank are still kicking around Angel today. A couple new albums are out. Good stuff, but nothing beats this album in my opinion. The Tower especially. Rock and Rollers, great stuff. Greg Giuffria's keyboards are very dominant throughout this whole album. Punky Meadows' guitar work, fantastic, and Frank Domino's vocals fit it perfectly. I mean, very tight band, very tight album, and it doesn't get any better than this as far as debuts. And on the Casablanca record label. So why they didn't really gain more commercial success and become more popular, I don't know. I don't know why that was. It's hard to pinpoint why, but they just didn't. And they put out some other great albums. Sinful, Live from I can't remember the live album was good. And later, when Punky reformed Angel, a lot of that stuff was very good. But to me, that is the best album they put out. Others may disagree, but in my opinion, that's the best. So anyway, this is installment 1 of Blast from the Past. Leave some comments below. If you got any, ring the bell, subscribe to the channel, and I'll be back for another edition of Blast from the Past. Take care, everybody.